Hey guys, hope you're having a fantastic day. I wanted to make this video for a long time now, and I'm just trying to pump out more of the YouTube content that I find would be valuable for the former me and former versions of myself along the entrepreneurial journey, especially with my holistic offerings. I wish I had what I'm about to share with you guys 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago when I was first starting my Jivanam Ayurveda and wellness education and holistic retreat business. So this is honestly more of a vlog for myself to share the journey that I went through from being a monk, sleeping on the floor with, 20 other monks on a yoga mat, to having my own holistic business in its infancy, to growing that to multiple six figures, and then to growing multiple businesses to multiple six figures, and then now to building Yumuna Coach to where it's at now. Um, the lessons I learned along the way, the mindset I had to adopt along the way, the challenges I faced along the way, and hopefully I can look back on this video in a year, 5 years, 10 years, and just, smile and say, hey, I wish I knew what I know today back then when I made this video 5 years ago. So it's really a process for myself to just kind of share my insights and process some of the journey. So I hope you enjoy. So I think the first starting point I want to start from is when I lived as a monk. This was a huge transformative period of my life where I was going to school for biology in the University of North Florida in Jacksonville. And I met monks, and I thought the music that they were doing was pretty cool on the campus. I later learned that this was called kirtan, or mantra meditation. And I just asked them, hey, like, what's this about? And they said, oh, we're, chanting to God. And I was like definitely turned off by that because I had been so far removed from like the religion or spirituality scene for a while and was trying to forge my own path. But I was intrigued and something about it drew me in. And so I started going to their sessions. They had incredible food, they had incredible meditation, music, community. And I just started to see and observe their character. And while I didn't agree with all the philosophy or points that they were making at the time as an 18-year-old, 17-year-old, I really did admire the character with which they held themselves, excuse me. And it was just in contrast to my current state of integrity and state of character, which I thought was developed for a 17-year-old, but these people had developed such more refined sense of morality and form of thinking and form of serving, form of humility, compassion, wisdom, and were articulate in all of those regards with how they express themselves. And so it was really impressive for me and also confronting for me because I was much less developed. And so it was uncomfortable, but I opted in for a monk lifestyle while I was in college, lived in a monastery for about 4 years, in Florida, and then in India full time, and then in New York City, and the only monastery in New York City serving thousands of people that are walking through our doors at the Bhakti Center in the Lower East Side of Manhattan. And I'll just share real quick because I think it's important. Um, One of the most important things I think I learned while being in the ashram, because we were waking up every day, 3 a.m., 4 a.m., doing a few hours of meditation, doing a few hours of reading, going to a temple service, then serving the community, and then doing more studies in the evening, and then repeating that day in and day out with such a regimented lifestyle. I had to learn, first of all, how to be disciplined. And then, second, I was surrounded by people who were just so far ahead of me when it came to their skill sets. They're Ayurveda teachers, yoga teachers, masters at meditation, masters at leadership and presenting to large crowds. And they were just so far ahead of me. And then, what to speak of spiritually. And it was humbling. And one of the things I had to learn was how to be corrected and how to fall in love with being corrected. It was my first time experiencing men in my life who were further ahead than me, who actually had my best interest in mind, who were open to correcting me lovingly, advocating for my growth through that correction. I was so used to being corrected by people who were not embodying what they were trying to teach me to do. And it was just it seemed hypocritical and they weren't living it. So that was one thing, swallowing the ego and really opening myself up to being corrected. Um, that was pivotal for me. And one of the things that I started to feel while I was in the ashram, and I think many of you will probably relate with this, is this feeling of comparison with others. I started to see all these successful people, my age or a little bit older than myself, getting huge opportunities, speaking with celebrities, going on crazy podcasts, you know, doing wild events, retreats, trainings. And I felt like, hey, I really have something to give and I'm being undervalued. And it was this sort of perpetual victim mentality that was operating on a subtle platform for most of my life. And it continued into the ashram to some extent. And of course, it wasn't always like that, but I felt like, hey, where's my opportunity? I felt like my mentors weren't giving me opportunities, or the organization I was part of wasn't giving me the right opportunities. And I really like outsourced the responsibility for my success to others. And it wasn't until I really confronted the fact that nobody, no person, no mentor, no parent, no institution, no organization, no religious affiliation is responsible for my success and my path in life other than myself. And until I really owned that to a much higher extent than I was owning it, I was playing a victim card to some extent and outsourcing the responsibility I should have completely taken responsibility for myself. So, that was extremely pivotal. As soon as I made that decision, I hired my first coach for $27,000. So, just to back up, I was giving bodywork in New York City. When I graduated the monastery, I started to give Ayurvedic bodywork, teach Ayurvedic workshops, charging $20, $40, $50 for those workshops, and then charging sliding scale $100 to $150 per treatment. And I was starting to get a lot of clients in New York City, making $3,000-$4,000 a month, and really loving it because it was the first time I had a career or profession that actually was in integrity with myself. I didn't have to work for a boss. I didn't have to do something that was boring or not in alignment with my values. And I got to help a lot of people and see the results immediately. And it was growing because people were getting incredible results with Marma therapy, with the lineage of bodywork that I was trained in. And it was exciting. And I had no expenses because I was still living in the temple. So I gave a little donation to the temple. But other than that, it was 100% profit. So pretty good for a 20 whatever year old. But then it got to a certain point where that was maxed out. I was a little tired of zooming all over the city to give body work. I knew that I couldn't work any harder than I was working at the time. I was like, man, how do I break past this ceiling? And I was seeing others experience success. And again, that comparison came in. And I was thinking, maybe I just need to post more on Instagram. Maybe I need to have a better website. Maybe I need to, just host more free workshops and get more people's interest. And I did some of those things and got very mixed results. Nothing was really a breakthrough opportunity because I wasn't aware of the breakthrough opportunity that was available for me, because I was still thinking in terms of one-off sessions, of one-off workshops, of one-on-one consultations. And that has such a limitation to it that I wasn't aware of, was keeping me back from serving at a higher level. And I just didn't know how to create a high ticket offer, how to lead a retreat, how to do any of those things. I had experience helping others with those things, but I myself hadn't done it yet. So skip forward, I hire a coach for $27K. This is at a point where I just moved out of New York City. So I had zero clientele, I had zero income coming in, and I had some life savings. But this $27K was more than I had ever invested. And the reason I invested was because I saw a friend who had a testimonial for this coach, and their testimonial was, I turned my annual income into my monthly income. And I just thought there's absolutely no way that that's possible. And if it's possible, then they're probably doing something immoral. I was like, man, what are they doing? Like teaching them how to be in a drug cartel, or, I'm obviously exaggerating, but I just thought there had to be some trick to it or something out of integrity to it for someone to be getting those results. That was one of the beliefs that I held at the time. I just didn't know how someone could 10 or 12x their income in such a short period of time. It just wasn't fathomable for me. And so I started looking at this coach's content, and I had some aversion to them talking about money and different things like that because of my personal beliefs around money, which were confronted over and over again in the coming months. Um, and then I hopped on a call with them. And honestly speaking, I was hoping that this coach would be fake so that I would have an excuse to ignore them, to not hire them, and to just continue doing things the way that I wanted to do things, which was the hard way. But I also, in the back of my mind, knew like, in order to 10x my income, like, would I be able to work 10 times harder? And so, because that's the philosophy I was operating by, like, that effort to income is a 1-to-1 ratio. I have to put in X amount of effort and I get X amount of output or income as the reward or result. Because I was operating by that philosophy, I thought, man, I can't work 10 times harder. So I'm curious what this person has that is not that model. And they had an incredible program. They were actually very genuine and kind and loving and very intelligent too. And so I was just like, damn, uh, I know I have to hire this person and I know it's going to be a good amount of money. And when they dropped that 27K price tag, it just was like a thunderbolt that hit my heart and was so incredibly uh, confronting. I just couldn't fathom someone. I didn't know people could charge that amount of money. Like, I had no conception of that. And I just breathed. I had my own nervous system reaction to it. I looked at my wife. My wife was like, if you want to do it, do it. And I said yes. And it was more than my entire life savings. And it was a huge leap of faith. But I knew I had something to offer. And I knew I had so much potential that was just latent inside of me. It was eating me up. It was like festering. And I just opted in. I said yes. And I literally just immediately felt this empowerment enter my body where I was like, I've got this. I have no idea how I'm going to do it. I have no idea how I'm going to pay this back. And I'll tell you exactly what I did. I made $24,000 in 5 weeks and blew my own mind. I had no idea that was possible. When I hired this coach, I was like, you know what, a mind-blowing goal for me would be like, just the number that came to me was $14,000 in a month. And the most I had earned was maybe 4,000 or 5,000 in a month. And I said 14K in a month. And to me, that seems so unreasonable. And then the first month I made 24,000 or something like that. And I'll tell you exactly how I did it, if you want to know. I made an Ayurveda program that was 6 weeks. It had 22 lessons to it that were an hour to 2 hours each. It was everything I thought someone needed to know to have a solid foundation over Ayurveda. And that was the science I was trained in for the past, 6 years or whatever, living in the monastery. Ayurveda is health science. And I originally priced it at $1,000 or something like that, $950. And I was like, maybe I'll just get 5 people, and that would be mind-blowing to me. And I posted it, and like a day or two later, someone just signed up through my website without me even having a sales call with them. And I was like, oh my God, someone just paid me $1,000 through my website and I had never met them. I don't even know who they are, but they just signed up. And I got another one, and then I was like, okay, how do I get more people? And I sold another one, and I was like, oh my God, I think I should, I kept getting the feedback that it was so cheap because I had no conception of what other people were charging or what this program was worth because I had never offered it before and I just didn't know. And people were like, wow, this is so cheap. So I upped the price to $1,200, $1,500 for some of the next clients. And I went on Instagram. I searched all my followers. I sent them all voice notes and just said, hey, just wanted to reach out, connect, hear what's going on in your life. I'm also offering this awesome thing. Thought you maybe want to connect about it. And we could have a little vision session around your health, around your life. Love to hear some of your goals and see if I can serve you further. And I just sent out 20, 30 of those voice notes every single day through Instagram to my followers, to followers of similar accounts. And I got my calendar full of sales calls. I didn't even know there were sales calls at the time. I just was cool, connection calls. And I had no idea how to do sales, but I just started talking and started to get to know people. And sometimes the calls were an hour and a half or even 2 hours. And my eyes were melting and my ears were convulsing. And I got 14 or 16 more people, something like that, more to sign up at this higher price point in a few weeks. And I was just oh my God, like I didn't know this was possible. And I led the program, and people had an incredible time in the program, and we're like, wow, this was a bargain. And I worked very, very hard on that program, like creating the content, making sure everyone had an incredible experience. Like I over delivered hard, but I didn't even know because I had no context for what a program should or shouldn't be. And people had an incredible time. Because they had an incredible time, the next program I launched, which was a bodywork training, almost all the people from the first program signed up for the bodywork training, and on it went. I just used the same Instagram reach out strategy. I signed up people from the previous program into the next program because they had such a great experience, and it just kept going like that. And I just kept building it for years and years and years, um, and brought that Jivanam Ayurveda to a high six-figure level. And that blew my mind because I just had no idea that that was possible. It felt so empowering for me to have what I needed. Like I, for the first time, like bought clothes that just fit me, because living in the ashram, it was like the Salvation Army. People would just like charitably give donations of like their old clothes and like ripped shirts, and like we just like pick whatever worked, and we slept on yoga mats on the floor. And I had like $200 to my name for many years, and traveled the world and went to India, and always found a way to kind of scrape together money to make it work. But now I was experiencing abundance for the first time, and I had to confront so many beliefs like, when is it enough? Like, is it wrong to make a certain amount? Um, what will other people think of me if they know the results that I'm getting? What happens if I make more than my mentors and teachers who taught me all this stuff? And so many of these like confronting thoughts were coming my way. And what if I have an unhappy customer? What if people speak badly about me? There are so many things that came up as potential roadblocks that I had to work through each step of the way. And I realized very quickly that in order to get bigger and bigger goals, I had to become a more developed person in my integrity and my character, and that was so important for me. When I first hired my coach, I promised, like, if I made 10K in a month or 14K or 20K in a month, which was so foreign to me at the time and mind-blowing, would I allow my character to change? Would I trust myself to make that amount of money? And when I really searched my heart, my answer was yes. And my lived experience was yes, because I wasn't whiling out. I wasn't like flashing anything online. And it's only recently, like through videos like this, where I even share about it. And I don't feel any sort of dopamine hit or sensation from sharing about it. I just share because I love the journey. And for me, the entrepreneurial journey is so linked to how I grow myself as a person. And I've had to learn through making different mistakes along the way, through, maybe being rough with someone on a sales call, or making mistakes, or not knowing how to deal with certain things. And each time I feel like I had to opt in to fighting another boss. Like in a video game, like you grow to a certain level and then you have to face a boss. And it's only until you defeat that boss that you can graduate and unlock new parts of the mission, and unlock new levels, and unlock new parts of the map in the game. And I felt like my business was that way. Like I had to harness particular skills and character traits to allow me to defeat certain bosses that were coming as challenges and confrontations, grow myself, and then unlock a new level of opportunity. And I had to do that each stage. Like, okay, made 10K in a month. Okay, made 20K. Okay, made 30K. And new bosses were present at different ceilings of income, and new ways of thinking, and new skill sets I had to master. And honestly, I feel like I did pretty well not knowing anything about sales, not knowing anything about marketing, not knowing anything about anything, and just kind of used what I knew and used patience and determination to get to a high six-figure level. Now, let me talk about the next stage, which may be where some of you are at, and maybe some of you were at that 4 to 5K range. A lot of the people I help are at that stage one, trying to get to stage two, which is, 10, 20K per month. But where I next faced some of the challenges, whereas I was wearing every single hat in the business, right? I was doing all these voice notes, I was leading these retreats, I was teaching the classes, I was creating the coursework, handling emails, like processing payments, dealing with every single detail. And I didn't know how to raise my prices. I didn't know how to find clients who were willing to pay higher prices. I had some ideas of like leading private retreats for people, for wealthier people who wanted like a 3-day private retreat in their house where we cook for them, give them treatments, give them coaching, education, restock their pantry with awesome organic stuff. And I was like, but how do I find those people? And I was kind of like I just really didn't have a solid lead generation system that allowed me to get people who were willing to pay me higher rates. I think with where my prices were at 1,000, 1,500, 2,000, 2,200, around that range, people were cool investing. But as soon as I tried to offer something higher than that, I was finding it hard to find people qualified to pay that amount. And then also I was finding it laborious to continue the voice note reach out thing every single day and show up with the right energetic and have a clear heart when reaching out to people that I really wanted to help them and not just, make money off of them or whatever. And so all these things were becoming challenges for me. And it was around that time where I started learning about ads and Instagram ads. I had never run an ad before. And I launched my first ads. I learned a bit about how to do it. I launched super simple, very basic image with text on it ads. And the first ad I ran, I spent $2,000 and I contracted something like $70,000 or $80,000 in my coaching program. And so I had to learn the skill of advertising and how to lead somebody through a DM conversation and how to take someone from someone interested, give them value with different videos, different trainings, etc. So by the time they're on the call, they built some of that trust that my organic audience had already built in me from following me for 2 years, 5 years, 7 years on Instagram. And how to recreate that same know, like, trust factor to strangers, and how to get the right strangers with the right qualifications who have money and are able to invest onto my calendar over and over and over again. That was a skill that I had to learn. And so I learned Instagram ads, learned DMs, learned how to create a value proposition or homework videos, training videos, so that people would understand my level of competency and authority on particular subjects and understand I have a methodology that can really help them get from point A to point B. Okay, so this is where my business coaching really started to launch off. Okay, and this was priced significantly higher than my Ayurveda programs because the higher the level of problem you're solving for people, the higher price point you can charge. So people who don't pay based on what information is inside your course or coaching or program, they pay based on the value of the transformation that you're providing them. So if it's just like learning a cool new skill of like holistic nutrition or Ayurveda, it's X amount of dollars of like general population agrees upon. It's $1,000 to $4,000 or $10,000 skill, depending on how in depth the program is, what the promises are for the program. Some people go to college for Ayurveda and spend tons of money, but I was seeing that based on how I was doing it, it was more of a limited opportunity. Versus the coaching, I was solving $20,000 problems, $100,000 programs or problems, $500,000 problems, because of the transformation that was coming. So just realizing like which opportunity of vehicle was actually going to get me to where I wanted to go financially. I realized like, wow, I could keep selling like $2,000 or $3,000 Ayurveda programs, which to me was mind blowing, getting me to where I was at. Or I could sell programs that are double, triple, 5 times, 10 times that amount, and people will buy. And even strangers I was finding from ads will buy based on how I presented value and led with value, based on how well I led through a sales call. I had to learn really to refine the art of conscious sales instead of using any emotional manipulation tactics and stuff that's out there in the marketplace. I had to really learn how to do consent-based sales, how to really get the right people into my program, because I was finding like there's sometimes people on the edge that are like, you're not a full yes to them, but they're willing to pay you and they want your program. And I was finding every time I like ignored my intuition about somebody, where I felt like only like a 60% yes to them and they were 100% yes to me, I was finding like every time those people became problematic clients that demanded way more than other clients or blamed me or created drama. I was finding it almost every time I made an exception and ignored my intuition, I was having problems and experiencing setbacks. And so I became really good at just saying no to people, like even people willing to pay me and enter my program. I was just like, I don't think this is fully aligned. And the power of no became very apparent. Like I had to develop that. Like there's people out there willing to pay you, but I don't want the qualification to be you have a credit card and you have a pulse so you can be in my program. No, I want it to be a more, what's it called? Exclusive. I want it to be a more exclusive program than just you need a credit card and a pulse. I want it to be, you're really qualified. I really believe you can do this. You really believe you can do this. You've helped people in the past. And then still have filtration processes. So I make sure it's 100% aligned. And then I'm like, yes. And so I learned that in order for me to enroll somebody, their level of being a yes to my program and my level of being a yes to them have to be equal. If they're more of a yes to me than I am to them, there's a problem. And if I'm more of a yes to them than they are to my program or me, there's also a problem. So the level of yes that I have and the level of yes that they have has to be the same, or else there will be problems with those clients. You'll get people that don't do the work, people that blame, people that ghost, people that demand a lot out of you and are never satisfied. So I really learned that lesson. I really learned how to do lead generation. And then I learned how to hire. That was the first thing. And I tried to hire different people, virtual assistant. Maybe I need to make my website better. I started to invest more. Now I had cash flow. Maybe I need this, maybe I need that, maybe I need this. And I wasted money, honestly. I wouldn't call it a waste because it's education on what I don't need, but I paid a premium price to understand I don't really need a cuter website. I don't really need a VA doing emails and stuff. I don't really need a copywriter. I don't really need all these other services out there. And so the number one thing I realize is I need to get lead generation off my plate so I can take more calls, enroll more people, and increase the quality of my services by adding more value to it. And so I hired what's called an appointment setter, and I learned about it, how to train them, how to guide them, and I hired my first appointment setter. So now this person, all the people that were coming in through my ads, they were handling those DMs, handling their questions, asking them questions, giving them free value, and then the right people they were getting to apply and book for a call. And just having that off of my plate was so incredible. Like to get that first book call that I didn't have to do any work for, that 5th book call, that 10th book call, my whole week booked full, my whole month booked full, without me lifting a finger, was absolutely mind-blowing. So that's how I hit, I went from wherever I was with my coaching business, high 6-figure level, to hitting my first on track for 7-figure month. And that was absolutely a celebration for me. It was just like, wow, this is what leverage is like. Instead of trading effort to income in a 1-to-1 ratio, I'm now trading income to buy back my time so that I can create more opportunity for sales and more opportunity for my clients getting more value from me. And so that was really cool. So I was learning this skill of delegation first with the appointment setter, and I learned that there was really 4 main buckets of my business that I needed to learn how to delegate. The first being lead generation, which the appointment setter helped me do tremendously, took all of that off my plate. Now my calendar was full of the right people and I did zero work. I could increase the amount of sales and I could increase the time that I was spending with clients. I could take more one-on-ones because I had more time on my calendar available, etc. So it allowed me to increase sales and also increase fulfillment while someone else was handling this first bucket for me, which was lead generation. The other buckets that need to be delegated were sales and fulfillment. So sales being the actual discovery calls themselves with potential clients, and then fulfillment being the actual delivery of my coaching and education and product service. Okay. So now the next level that I tried and failed at and learned a lot of lessons from was how to hire, how to lead a team, how to delegate, how to create opportunities for others to grow and see themselves growing in your company for the next 5, 10, 15 years. I learned that a few things when I tried to implement salespeople into my team, miserably failed at it. One is you need to create a situation that will invite an A player. So what do I mean by that? If you're, for instance, getting 10 or 15 discovery calls per week, and you want to find somebody who can be an A player, who is a master salesperson. Now you have to think, with the current opportunity of those 10, 15 calls a week, will they be able to hit their target income that they're used to, which is probably $10, $15, $20,000 a month as a high-level sales representative? Will they be able to hit that given the opportunity that I've created within this business? I found that I hadn't created that opportunity stream enough to hire an A player and attract an A player. So then I found people who were not as trained. And so then what happens is they got less calls, they got less sales. I had to do a lot of the heavy lifting of training that person. And another mistake that I made was as soon as the person got a win, I was like, great, let me give you more calls. Let me give you a higher ratio of the calls because I was still taking calls side by side with them. And at one point I just kind of pushed almost all the calls onto a new person's calendar and their results like went way down. So delegating too soon was a huge mistake that I made that cost me a ton of clients and time because I could have definitely enrolled many of those people myself. It's just I didn't provide the right training up front for that person who I hired to completely succeed. And so I realized when I hired my next person and tried it out, I had to give them a small amount and then do a lot of quality control and review and encouragement and appreciation. Give a small amount, a lot of quality control, review, appreciation, and then slowly increase based on the results that they're getting. So if they got a sale, awesome. Give them a little bit more calls. Another sale, okay, give them a little bit more, do a ton of quality control, have regular meetings. Now I have daily meetings in the morning with my team and 3 times a week quality control with my sales team. So we have a total 8 meetings per week just with the sales team. I had to learn how to lead a team. I had to learn how to create an opportunity that would actually attract people who I didn't have to train from scratch and how to do a good job. And so many other things. So that was that. Now that I had 2 people actually that I hired simultaneously that were both doing very well at sales, one of the things that I really wanted to delegate was client success. So I had a client success director that I hired who is now helping with some of the one-on-one, who's now helping with some of the repeatable tasks. So think about, for your client to get from point A to point B, what are all the steps in between? And what are the steps that you're used to facilitating that someone else could probably easily learn if you train them how to facilitate for your clients. And I learned that there's really 2 ways to have a client success director. One was that they know less about your industry and about your offer and about your particular skill set. So like, for instance, business coaching. They don't have to necessarily know a ton, but what they do is they meet people to keep them accountable. They answer whatever questions they can, which will probably be about 20% of the technical questions that your client may have. And they connect them with you, they connect them with the group sessions, and they connect them with the resources in the course. So they're what's called a connector client success director. Okay? And they just provide more of a high-touch experience for your clients so they feel cared for, so they know where all the resources are, so they're held accountable, so they have someone to troubleshoot with, get feedback from. That's not you. Okay? So As soon as my time became limited by me setting all my own appointments, I hired an appointment setter. As soon as my time became limited by now I have way too many sales calls, I can't do anything else, I can't have more one-on-one clients because I don't have time, I can't create more content because I have so many sales calls, I hired sales reps. Okay. Now that the actual fulfillment of the service, like having all the group calls, giving client feedback, etc., was the bottleneck, hired someone who could also learn how to answer those questions and facilitate those. So that was the first layer of client success director that you can hire. Or you can hire someone who's more of an expert, who knows a lot about your industry, a lot about your skill set, like Ayurveda or business coaching, whatever your industry is, and they can answer about 80% of the questions that your client will have. And they're not so much a connector, but like a high level coach who has expertise. Now, of course, you're going to have to pay that person a lot more, but either of these are great depending on what your offer is. And so now they can free up time in the fulfillment bucket. So now that I have all three of these delegated, we were able to hit multiple six-figure months. And that's wild for me to publicly declare, but I'm just, again, having this video as a vlog and as something to look back on and something to celebrate also. So that is pretty much the journey. And I had to learn so much more than I'm able to put into this video, but I hope that you got some snippets out of the early stages from being a monk to next stages of kind of hustling one-to-one consultations, body work, next stage of leading high-ticket trainings for the first time, to next stage high-ticket coaching, consulting, and then to very high-ticket programs and building seven-figure sales team, seven-figure marketing team, seven-figure success team, client success team, and what that looks like. So I hope to be doing more of these. This was a little rough and loose, but I pray that you got a ton of value out of it, and I'd love to hear more about your journey on your entrepreneurial path. So hope this helps. All right, peace, guys.